So I'm Eli, I'm KD8 RBH. I was a DELARA member for a while there, and around 2011 is when I got my ham radio license. Actually just had to renew it a year ago. So currently what I'm doing is I'm teaching. I teach cybersecurity at DACC at the Career Center on 23. So I teach juniors and seniors in high school. A little bit of my background, I'm a geek. That's just my personality. Have always been into technology, making technology do what it's not intended to do, into computers, robotics. I'm normally giving this talk to a different audience. Normally I'm teaching those juniors and seniors or other people. And then in here, I've got in there, I'm a ham radio operator, KD8 RBH, and I always ask, like, anybody else a ham radio operator? So anybody else a ham radio operator? Wow, that's the most I've ever had. So I also offer extra credit to my students that get their ham radio license to try to promote younger students to get that, because I think there's some good learning opportunities there. Eagle Scout, I work as a director of contest judging for the National Robotics Challenge, and then I serve as a technical volunteer for the Delaware County Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management. If you want to know a little bit more about me, you can find me at elicochran.me. That's kind of like my portfolio page. That's got just my general links to all my social medias, links to everything, wherever you can find me. So October, if you didn't know, October is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. This is actually the 20th National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. So that was why when I reached out back in August, September, I was like, hey, do you guys need anybody to do a presentation? October is kind of the time for cybersecurity. So when we kind of think about goals, right? Goals for our meeting here, I'm hoping you at least come away with one useful piece of information, maybe a couple more. So kind of how we're going to be looking at our agenda tonight. We'll talk about USB thumb drives, flash drives. We'll talk about some live attacks and then the data protection measures. And then we'll get into some social engineering. And then we'll try to finish out with Q&A. By all means, feel free to stop me at any time. If you have a question, it's a pretty small group. If you have a question, raise your hand. We can stop. But what are these? Thumb drives. Thumb drives. What else? Anybody else? Flash drives? Speed drives. Well, surprisingly, one of those is a flash drive. One is what is called a USB rubber ducky. So I've got something here. I might need the lights back on. But I've got little things right here. So what are these? Cables. Charging cables. So one of these is malicious and one is safe. For those that are remote, these are what they look like. So one is malicious, one is safe. Who wants to be my Vanna White and volunteer? Nobody? Who wants to be my volunteer? I need somebody. Okay, okay, there we go. Awesome. Thank you for volunteering there. So take a look at those. One's malicious and one is safe. I need you to tell me which one is the safe one and which one is the malicious one. A lot's riding on it.
That's the safe.
You think that's the safe one?
Yeah.
You sure?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Right there. He's the embedded engineer.
See if my camera follows me back over here. It did not. I was afraid of that. It got hooked onto somebody else. There we go. Now it'll follow me. Maybe. There it goes. Cool. So you said this was the safe one. You actually chose correct. Nice job. A lot of people do not. So I'm going to actually go ahead and take that. I'm going to take the not safe one, and I'm going to go ahead and plug it into my phone here. Yeah. So what you're going to see here is you're going to see my phone turn on. Here in a second, it's going to turn off. It's going to turn back on. The technology inside that cable is actually booting up. It's going to go ahead and punch in my PIN code for me. It's going to go ahead and open up a web browser. And as long as I have cell service, it's actually going to go ahead and load up a website for me. And there's that website loaded up, all from that cable. So do you have your phone on you? Yeah. Can you pass it up real quick? No. He thought about it. If you notice, he did pick it up. He thought about it. But in all seriousness, open up your phone. You guys can do this too. If you have your phones, you can open up your phones. Look at your available Wi-Fi. So like go to like select available Wi-Fi. For those that are remote, that's what it looks like. Just a little USB-C cable. Okay, in your available Wi-Fi, do you see a OMG? Yeah. Okay, don't connect to that. Okay, so actually this is actually broadcasting a wireless access point signal outside of this cable. So there's actually active technology inside this cable. If you were to wirelessly connect to that Wi-Fi access point, it'll give you a web interface, and from that web interface, you can actually wirelessly inject code into my phone. You can wirelessly exfil data. How many of you have like a USB-C keyboard plugged into your keyboard in your computer? If this is, I unplugged it, so it's no longer there. So if you have this plugged in between your computer and a keyboard, it's also a key logger. So it logs all keystrokes, usernames, passwords, anything and everything, and then you can wirelessly exfil that data. It'll also, on your mouse, it'll act like a mouse, and it'll jiggle the mouse by 1 pixel to the left and 1 pixel to the right. And you're like, okay, that makes no sense. Why would it do that? It keeps your computer from auto-locking. So if your computer would automatically lock, this will prevent that from auto-locking, so then somebody could just come up to your computer and get into it if you don't automatically lock your system. For some reason, my camera turned off the recording, so I'm going to go ahead and turn that back on. I'm playing around with some new cameras and trying them out. So I'm noticing I keep forgetting to turn off hand gestures, and there we go. Now it's going to start tracking me again. So I noticed I got to turn off hand gestures. Yeah?
Do they sell that as just a charging cable?
Yeah, it's available online. You can buy it right now. So speaking of that, it is a charging cable. It works just like a normal charging cable. To the average person, they wouldn't know any different. It'll pass data to and from the phone even. But inside there, there's also some extra added stuff where when you're done with your data exfiltration, you can break the cable. So it'll either break in the mode where it just deletes and purges all of the malicious stuff, but it'll still work as a charging cable. Or you can actually have it break in the way where it'll no longer charge the device, and then thoughts that the victim would actually throw the computer or throw the cable away, thinking it's bad. I saw you had an iPhone, so you're probably thinking, I'm safe, I have an iPhone. Well, there's a malicious lightning connector one, so that you're not safe actually. So those are called OMG cables. Yes, you can buy them online. They're readily available. Like I said, they've got the lightning connector, USB-C. If you feel them, they actually feel just like a regular USB cable. So how many of you have ever seen like public charging stations?
Yeah.
So the technology that's inside that cable can also be inside a charging station. That's why you should never ever plug into public USB charging, even the cables. If you're gonna charge publicly, bring your own wall wart is the best way, or bring a battery pack. Never plug into just random USB ports that you find laying around, because that same technology and that cable can be in the charger. Robert Mueller, he was a former FBI director. He's known for saying there's two types of companies, those that have been hacked and those that will be. I like to take this a little bit different. There's two types of companies. There's those that have been hacked, and there's those that don't know they've been hacked. I think at this point, it's so prevalent that every company has been hacked in some way, shape, or form. Might not have been a successful attack, but it was still an attack. If you're interested, you're welcome to get your phones out, take a picture of this. These are live attack maps. You can actually go to them and look them up. The one I normally go to is this checkpoint one, and you're like, okay, how does it get that data? How many of you have ever installed a piece of software that has a little checkbox that says, I want to anonymously send my data to improve this product? These companies make malware and antivirus software, and that's how they get that data in. So it's actually live attacks. ThreatWire used to have a daily counter. And if you notice in that picture, it had 43 million attacks in that day. I looked at it today to get a number for you all, but it did not have the number there anymore. But I looked at another website, and it said the United States had 4.3 billion attacks. Now, I don't know if that was for the day or for the week or for the month. I'm not sure. So take it at a grain of salt, but it did have there on that picture 43 million attacks in one day. So this is why we... No, it's not. You're good. Those are QR codes. That's a whole other talk. No, it's actually this talk. But so this is why I do what I do. I need to teach that next generation cybersecurity, because these are threats that are happening right now, active. We need that next generation of cybersecurity professionals. But how can everybody else protect themselves? We can look at data protection measures. First and foremost, and you guys are a technical group, so some of this you might already know, backing up your data. That is one way you can protect yourself, especially from ransomware, is you can back up your data. In backing up data, there's a 3-2-1 rule. You want to have 3 different copies, 2 different types of media, one of those being off-site. So I can't tell you how many times I've helped people. They'll bring me a hard drive, that it's a backup hard drive that they need data recovered from. And I'm like, what's your backup? Just go get your data off your, well, I deleted it off my computer. well, then you don't have a backup. You have your copy of the data that's now gone. So people just think they have a backup hard drive and they're moving their data to that hard drive. You still have one copy. It's just on a backup hard drive. So you want to have multiple copies of your data. The reason you want it on 2 different types of media, how many of you remember floppy disk drives? The original save icon? How many of you still have a floppy disk drive in your computer?
I still use mine.
You still use yours. Well, you're few and far between. So if you backed up all your data on 1,000,001 different floppies and you needed to go recover that nowadays, good luck finding a working floppy disk drive. I'm sure there's a few. And you might have some. So having that on 2 different types of media, on a hard drive, the cloud, if you trust the cloud can be another type of media, and that also helps with that off-site. I personally don't trust the cloud. What I do is I have a server at home, again, going back to I'm a geek. I have a server at home that backs up all my computers, and then annually I take a hard drive copy of my server and take it to a safety deposit box. So yes, technically if my house were to burn down, I could lose about a year's worth of data, but I'm willing to accept that risk. When we look at cybersecurity, it's all about risk balance.
Somebody was 2 terabit, I think they're solid state drives.
Yeah.
Micro Center.
Yeah,
And I just plugged one, I've got 3 of them. And I plugged one of them in.
rotate them.
And
Yep.
back everything up and then put them in the safe.
Yeah, it's all. I'm glad to hear you unplug them. That's another thing people will do with their backup hard drives. They leave them plugged in, and ransomware is now actively looking for USB drives to encrypt as well, because that's normally where people are backing up their data. So it's also not only doing your main partition of your system, but also a backup. So some things we can look at. Another thing after looking at our backing up our data, that takes care of that portion of it. We can also look at passwords. Using a password manager is vital. We need to have, you've heard, don't use the same password for multiple websites, using unique passwords. Well, how are we gonna remember that many passwords? We're not. I actually just moved password managers. I was with LastPass, and now I'm with Keeper. So in the process of moving, I found out that I have 564 passwords. So it is a lot, and 90% of those are unique passwords. So I'm pretty proud of that. So having a password manager, how many of you know of a small social media website called LinkedIn? A couple of you know some LinkedIn stuff. So LinkedIn is a business professional. Think of it like a business professional Facebook. Well, back in 2017, they were actually hacked. They had a data breach. And a part of that data breach, there was unencrypted passwords that was released in that data breach. So it gave us a really good look at what people's general passwords were. And believe it or not, the most common password back in 2017 was 123456. That was actively being used by people on LinkedIn. The next one right behind that, anybody want to take a guess? You might be able to see it. It was password. Literally, that was the next one. Password was the next one. There's also another that happened back in the early 2000s or mid 2000s. It's called the RockU text document. That is one way that cybersecurity professionals, we can feed it through a dictionary attack, and we can run through the RockU password. It was a big multi-million user database dump that had unencrypted passwords. So if we think about how computers attack passwords, it's really hard for it to do that cryptography. But if we just have it say, compare this, compare this, compare this, it's a lot easier for a computer to do that. So having a unique password is definitely number one. Don't reuse them, because you might have something on a website that's poorly coded and they had your password unencrypted, like LinkedIn did. I hate to beat them up, but it happened. But then your bank account, right, is secured. It's pretty good. But if I can do what's called credential stuffing and just take that username and that password from this website that was breached and plug it in over here, and voila, now I'm into your bank account. So using password managers, those are a couple different ones that you can look at. So password testing, this is a really good website if you want to, again, take a picture of it or pull it up. But note, please do not put in your real password. So don't put in your actual password into this website. It's safe, but I still wouldn't put my real password in anything else than what I'm logging into. But it's actually a really cool website. If you go to it and you put in like a pseudo password, it'll tell you how quickly that password could actually be hacked. So if you go in and put like 123456, it's instantaneously, it can be hacked. Same thing with password, it can be hacked instantly. You might find another password that might be able to be hacked in about 2 minutes. My students really like to play this game and see how long they can get. And sometimes they can get quadrillion, bazillion years or something. It's some weird high number, but they find that fun to figure out. So on top of our passwords, another way we can encrypt ourselves or secure ourselves is we can use what's called either two-factor or multi-factor. How many of you have ever gotten a text message when you try to log into something and it gives you a 5 or 6 digit code? How many of you have ever logged into an account? So yeah, perfect, that's great. That's a two-factor, that is a form of two-factor. Now, text messaging and that kind of stuff is actually not the best way to get two-factor because there's what's called SIM jacking. Somebody can steal your SIM card and intercept those text messages. So from a form of two-factor severity level, really that text messaging one is not ideal. But when we look at two-factor, it's two forms of identification, or two forms are how they're identifying you. So we might have your password being one, and that's something you know, and then we might have something you are. You might do a fingerprint, something like that, or a text message. It might be something you have. You have your cell phone with you to get that text message. So that is a form of two-factor. What's that? Face ID. That would be a biometric. That would be something you are. I personally like, I have a YubiKey. So this is a hardware authentication token. So whenever I go to log into my bank account or I log into my password manager, this is really important to have a physical hardware token. And you need two because you need a backup. Because if you get locked out of your password manager, you're hosed. So I take this, I plug it into my computer. It's not biometrics, it's just a capacitive touch button. And you touch that and then it tells the computer that there's a physical human pushing it, and then it'll authenticate you. It keeps somebody from just triggering it remotely. A physical person has to touch that. So that is a form of two-factor. Now when we look at multi-factor, that is gonna take our password. It's gonna do that Face ID that you were talking about, and then it might do that mobile text message or a fob. We're doing multiple factors of authentication. That is just securing things even more.
But not every program supports
No.
that fob.
Actually, you'd be surprised. YubiKey is widely adopted pretty much anywhere and everywhere. But what YubiKey will do is, a lot of websites will do that text message authentication. YubiKey actually has an app that you can do. How many of you have ever heard of like Google Authenticator? Yeah. So Google Authenticator is one where it'll give you that 6-digit code. YubiKey makes one of those apps, but to get it to give you that 6-digit code, you have to present that YubiKey over NFC to your phone. So it's like a triple layer. You have to present that to the phone in the app, and then it'll then give you the 6-digit code to then log in.
I got a question.
Yeah.
What about
Duo, the little fob, same technology. Yeah, YubiKey is just another brand.
my question is, how does that know?
Yeah, so what it is it's using what's called the public key infrastructure. So it's a encryption method that you authenticate and you trust, and then they are the trusted authority for that authentication. And then it's a time-based authentication. Algorithms that are above my head and make my head hurt. So this website, this is another really good one, and this one you can actually put in your real email address, and I highly actually encourage you to put in your real main email address into this. It's haveibeenpwned.com is the website. And what they do is they get all of those public data breaches where they have email addresses in, and they load those up into this database. So then you can actually go and search your email address in that database, and it will tell you if your email address was in a data breach. It'll tell you what website it was breached in. So it's actually really nice if you were in that LinkedIn breach and your email address was in there, it would actually tell you that you were breached in this data breach. So this is actually a legit website. I put in my email address on a regular. Sadly to say, I've got, at least last I checked, I had about 6 breaches. One really cool way to kind of help prevent, how many of you have a Gmail account, a Google email account? How many of you know about the plus feature in Gmail? Hey, here's the one thing you're gonna learn. Sweet, woo, gotcha. Okay, so in Gmail, you have your email address, whatever it is, at gmail.com. Right before that @ sign, if you put a little plus sign in there, you can add any variable, put in any word. So you can have, say it's my email at gmail.com. I can put my email plus my bank at gmail.com. that email will still come to my Gmail account. It is just a added character. Then you can do filter rules based on that. So you can say any emails come across that go into this specific folder. Or what's nice is if all of a sudden I sign up for, I don't know, let's say Kohl's or whatever. I sign up for some company's web email thing, and all of a sudden I start getting emails all over the place, and that email address is getting spammed. Now I know specifically who that came from. So when I sign up for my bank account, I might put in, I'm not gonna actually put in the real bank name, but I'll put a pseudo name in there. So I know that's only what I use on my bank. So the nice thing about doing that is it's almost like getting infinite amounts of email addresses. So then if an attacker gets your real email, they might not know what that added plus sign is. And it just is, it's not really security, it's more obfuscation, but it's still a little extra layer to add in there. So we talk about public Wi-Fi. Never connect to public Wi-Fi, except like I did tonight. I needed to get to download the slides. And we'll talk about if you need to connect to public Wi-Fi, what you have to do that. But it's really best to just not connect into public Wi-Fi. And the reason for that is what's called a man-in-the-middle attack. So that is where somebody in between can intercept what's happening between you and that server or you and that connection. They can monitor everything going across that network traffic. I always like to teach my students at the school, when they log into the school's Wi-Fi, it actually prompts them to install a certificate. So with that certificate, and a lot of websites are starting to do, or a lot of public Wi-Fis are starting to do this now, they make you install a certificate, which then allows them to not only look at the unencrypted traffic, but also look at the encrypted traffic. So they can actually decrypt your data, inspect it, re-encrypt it, and send it out. So even HTTPS is no longer technically safe if you authorize a certificate. So one way you can protect yourself is you can use a VPN. So a VPN is a virtual private network. So that's actually how I'm connected to the public Wi-Fi. It did not prompt me to install a certificate, so I was good there. And then I'm connected to a VPN, and there are VPN services that you can connect to. If you find a free VPN, then guess what? Your data is the payment plan. So if it is a free VPN, I personally don't trust any VPN providers because ultimately you have to trust those providers. So I use a software called WireGuard, and again, going back to I'm a geek, I have a server at home. So I VPN home, and then from there I'm web browsing out of my house. Now I do have to trust Frontier as my internet provider, but that is one of those things that I will trust them because I trust them at my house. So I have to get online. So you can spin your own VPN, or you can look. These are some others. I actually asked my students, like, hey, what do you guys recommend? And these were some of them that they recommended for VPNs. But again, even though that's encrypted, if you install that certificate, it would even be able to look inside that VPN. So let's talk about social engineering. This is a big one. I think we're doing pretty good on time. So social engineering is one of the biggest ways that attacks are happening. Believe it or not, 91%, I actually just looked at this report 3 days ago, 91% of data breaches are happening because of social engineering. It is not people hacking the crypto. That is what most everybody thinks of when they think of cybersecurity. They think of encryption and algorithms, and there's a hacker with a hoodie on, and they're getting into it. No, it's happening because of social engineering. When we look at social engineering, there's kind of 3 main pillars of social engineering. We have vishing, we have phishing, and then we have impersonation. So phishing, how many of you have gotten a random email of somebody wanting to give you millions of dollars if you just, yeah.
Really from Nigeria.
Yes, exactly. So phishing is the biggest form of social engineering. It kind of goes without saying, but don't ever click on links inside of email. But email is one of the biggest ways people are getting into companies and organizations and just people in general. But some things to look out for: make sure the email's coming from somebody you know. Check for typos. Check for typo squatting. So somebody might misspell a word in an email address just by 1 letter, or they might use a lowercase l instead of a capital I, or something like that to try to trick you up there. So just be mindful of those. Anything that's requiring urgency is another red flag. If they're needing it done right now, that's a problem. Step back, take a minute. But yeah, emails, that's the biggest thing. Just be mindful of that. I think a lot of people, we're pretty familiar with that nowadays. There's actually a thing called thread hijacking. And what attackers are doing, they're actually penetrating companies' email servers and getting inside the emails and looking at the conversations that are happening inside those emails. And they'll sit dormant and watch. And with that thread hijacking, if you're a manager and you every month get your expense report from your finance department, when January rolls around and you get the January expense report from your finance department that's in an Excel file, what are you going to do? You're going to open it up, right? Well, they're interjecting inside there. They're getting into there. They're sending you this Excel document, and it appears to be your finance department, but it's not. It's actually malicious code that then now compromises your system. So it's called thread hijacking. So when we look at, that's phishing, now we're talking about vishing. Vishing is voice phishing. So vishing is just through phones. This is really common with phones. Happening, and this lady did a talk out at DEF CON, and I think we're looking good on time. I'm going to go ahead and play this. It's about 2-3 minutes long. For those of you on the Zoom call, I will preface, I apologize. One of my biggest pet peeves is actually playing videos over Zoom and Teams. It always is choppy, and I apologize ahead of time. It is what it is. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and drag this over. So out at DEF CON is a big cybersecurity talk conference place. I'm going to switch my audio around. Add in audio 2. So they do a thing called, they'll go in and they'll start hacking people over the phone. They'll do like war dialing. So I'm going to go ahead and play this, and I'll let her explain it. If I have audio.
But they're going to hack me using social engineering, which is essentially hacking without any code. They just use a phone and an internet connection.
We help people with human security issues by testing vulnerabilities for like a network test, but it's for the people network. We test those vulnerabilities, see where the holes are, and then help people learn so they can patch them.
Can we try some of this? Can we try some?
Yeah.
See if it works?
Yeah, we probably could have our star visher here make some phone calls as your
Let's do
girlfriend.
it.
Sure. Do you want to do a sample phishing call?
What's phishing?
Phishing is voice solicitation, and basically what you do is you use the phone to extract information or data points that can be used in a later attack.
Let's do it. Who are you going to call?
Maybe I'll call your cell phone provider
Okay.
and see if I can get them to give me your email address.
I bet they're good. I bet they have my back. But yeah, go for it.
I'm going to spoof from your number, so it's going to look like it's calling from you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm so sorry. Can you hear me okay? My baby, I'm sorry. My husband's like, we're about to apply for a loan and we just had a baby and he's like, get this done by today. So I'm so sorry. I can't call you back. I'm trying to log into our account for uses information and I can't remember what email address we used to log the account. The baby's crying and can you help me? Awesome.
In just 30 seconds,
gmail.com?
Jessica gets my personal email address.
Now, if I needed to add our older daughter on our account so she could call in and make changes, how would I need to go about doing that? You would have to send me a secure PIN through a text message? Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't think I'll be able to receive a text message if I'm on the phone. Shh. Oh, I'm not on there either? So I thought when we got married, he added me to the account. Okay, my
Jessica uses my girlfriend's name and a fake social security number
5127.
to set up her own personal access to my account.
Wait, I'm sorry, so there's no password on my account right now? Can I set that up?
She even gets the support person to change my
Thank you
password.
so much for your help today.
So she just basically blocked me out of my own account.
I'll get her fed after this. All right.
So they just gave you access to my entire cell phone account.
You're gonna have to go on and change your password now because it's Jess, my name.
And all it took was a crying baby and a phone call.
Yes.
I really thought that my cell phone company would protect me. I mean, like...
Is that not crazy? Sorry, let me do a little bit of housekeeping here and bring this off that screen and back over to this screen. And then click there and go back. And then we should still be live for the people online. Cool. Okay. So yeah, so pretty insane, right? I love his facial expressions at the very end. It's just pure misery. Thankfully, she is a good guy, right? She is doing this for the good to show this exists and things like this happen. Another attack vector with vishing that happens, and it happens to a lot of our elderly crowd as well as older people, is it's happening with grandparent attack is what it's called. And what they're doing is they're getting and calling from the IRS, and they're saying that you owe money with the IRS. Sadly, my dad is 72 years old, and him and I are complete opposites when it comes to technology. The man could have been born about 400 years ago and lived perfectly fine. So anyways, he now has an Android device, and he has a computer, so I'm proud of that. But I thought we had this foolproof plan. Like, he wasn't going to do any, like, it wasn't going to sign anything. He'd always talk to me about it, but he got a call from the IRS. And the IRS said they needed $400 in Apple gift cards, or they were going to have the police come and get him. And I'm sad to say he actually went to the store and actually got $400 in Apple gift cards and sent them the codes. And as soon as he sent them the codes, he realized he messed up. And he called me, and we talked about it. And it happens. This happens. He's not alone. He's like, but Eli, they were so convincing. I'm like, I know they are. That's how they do this. They're making that money. It's going to happen. And the only way we were going to stop them is having talks like this. So I highly encourage you guys, talk to your friends, talk to your family, explain to them that the IRS is never going to call them. And it doesn't have to be the IRS. A lot of law enforcement is calling people now and saying they need those green dot cards and stuff like that. It does not happen that way. So the other big one that's now getting people with AI, and what they're doing is they're finding younger people in that college age range. They're finding videos of them and audio of them online, and then they're taking that audio and feeding it through AI, and then taking that and then making a voice from that sounds just like that child, and then they'll call that grandparent or parent and say, normally it's a grandparent, and they'll say, Grandma, I'm in spring break and I just got arrested and I need to get an attorney and they need you to wire them $3,000, Grandma. I promise you I will pay you back. And it sounds like their kid or their grandkid on a cell phone in Mexico. Like, it just sounds terrible, but they don't know any different. Please don't tell my parents I got caught drinking. I'm under the age of 21. You know, please don't tell Mom and Dad. I promise you I'll pay you back. And then what happens is they wire that money.
I got a phone call today.
Yeah.
Just this morning.
Yeah. That was one of those?
Yeah.
Legit or fake?
Oh, it's fake.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. It happens. And the only way that we're going to stop that, thankfully you didn't fall for it.
You know, if you call them an asshole, they might figure it out.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Yeah. So again, 91% of attacks are happening with some form of social engineering. The last one, we're kind of running out of time with impersonation. I'll kind of run through this really quick, but I've got a whole script over here. I'm going to read just a little bit of it. So I apologize. I'm going to be looking down at my computer screen. So I'm going to impersonate the IT department. So I would get the phone on and I'd call you up and say, hi, Amy, it's Joe from IT. Hey, I wanted to help you out. We're in the process of migrating our emails, as you heard. We're moving over to Office 365, and I didn't want you to lose access to your email account today, so I want to get you transferred over to the new system. But to do that, I need to get a authentication code from you. So I'm not going to ask you for your password. I'm your IT department. I don't want your password. Now, what Amy doesn't know is she used the same password in a website that got breached. So I did credential stuffing. And right now I'm trying to phish her for her two-factor authentication. So Amy, again, I'm your IT department. I'm not going to ask you for your password. I'm going to go ahead and send you an authentication code here in a second. Okay, did you get it? Yes, awesome. Okay, Amy, so your activation code should be 3241 or 8675309. Okay, I might not use those numbers, but Amy, those are going to be 321456. Well, what do people do when you give them the wrong information? They will normally correct you. They will say, no, it's 5678910. Now I just got her two-factor authentication, and now I can log into that email. So impersonation, somebody acting like somebody. How many times have people done this? Is a lot. They'll take and they'll just carry in a ladder and act like they own the place and walk into businesses because it looks like the FedEx guy, or it looks like a maintenance person or an elevator technician. We're not gonna stop them, right? So impersonation is another form of way that people are attacking, and that is a form of social engineering. So we're kind of wrapping up here. If you want to test out your hacking skills, you can do so. This website, it's okay, it's safe, it's legal, is hackertest.net is the website. And you can actually go on there and you can hack this website. And you can go in and you can have fun. Okay, it's not really hacking, it's more problem solving and puzzles, but students like mine love this kind of stuff. But it gets them to think outside of the box. It gets them to start using critical thinking skills and that kind of stuff, and gets them to solve problems and troubleshoot and figure things out. It is not, again, hacking that crypto, but it's getting them to look at the code. They have to inspect elements, that kind of stuff. So with that, there's my contact information. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, I am on LinkedIn. I am a part of the data breach, so welcome aboard. And then my website, elicochran.me. If you want to connect with me, you can find me on there. I appreciate you guys for your time. If there's any questions, by all means, feel free to throw them out. That's why I'm here. You brought me in to share my knowledge. So if you have any questions, by all means, we'll take a couple. Yes, go ahead, Gary.
Okay, so you were talking about the Gmail with the plus. Okay,
Yeah.
Is that similar to what, like with Apple? I know when I'm logging into a website, there's some option that I can select, and it says hide my email, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, it'll probably use like some kind of a random email address.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it just ties that email address back to you.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm just curious on that. I don't use it.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not an Apple person, so I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm assuming it would just be a pseudo email address. I'd be interested, does that stay with you forever, or is it just a one-time thing?
I am not sure because I've never used it, but when
Yeah.
I do go to log in, you know.
It asks.
It asks,
Yeah, I don't know how that works. Kind of talking about that, if any of you ever need like a one-time credit card, how many of you have ever wanted to sign up for something, but it requires a credit card for a 2-week trial? There's a thing called privacy.com, an app called Privacy, and you can link it to your bank account. And what it will do is it will actually give you virtual credit cards. And those virtual credit cards can be burner cards. So they'll only work one time. So you can go on a website, buy something, and then that credit card will no longer work ever again. So it's a really nice way. Or you can set it up and do a merchant account. So what you can do is you can like put that merchant account in your Amazon, and it will only charge you however much you authorize it to charge you. And if it tries to charge you more than that, it will not work. So if you want to sign up for 1 month on something, you can do that, and then it won't be able to charge you the next month, even if you forget to cancel the subscription. Yeah?
What's with Groups.io and the damn equal sign in place of an ampersand?
Say this again?
Are you on any Groups.io? Oh, you're not?
Groups.io?
Yeah.
Nope, not familiar with that.
Oh.
What's Groups.io?
Sort of like the old Yahoo groups, but
Oh,
on
okay.
steroids.
But a lot better.
Okay, nope, not a part of that, don't know.
Those cables,
Yes?
you say they're available on Amazon.
Not on Amazon, but on a website, on Hack5.
websites,
Yeah,
yeah.
on a website, yep.
But generally, if you buy a cable, it's not gonna,
You hope.
you hope.
You hope. So that is a concern. It's called a supply chain attack. I just brought the microphone over for people that are listening remotely. But yeah, it's called a supply chain attack. You hope they're not malicious. But it's very possible. You were actually really good. I'm surprised. Most people do not select this. But then again, I got a 50-50 shot.
I was looking at the number of connections inside the ports.
Yes, and actually, if you do look at that, again, you guys are more of a technical crowd, so you cheat a little bit, but if you do actually look at the connectors square on, you'll actually see they do look ever so slightly different. But yes, you have to be concerned about a supply chain attack. But what you can do is you can get a little device like this. This is a little power meter, and if I grab my USB battery pack, let's see if that tracks me still. Let me grab the good cable. So the safe cable, if I take it, plug it into my battery pack, and if you notice here, when I plug that cable in, nothing happens. Nothing turns on this. If I take this and I plug the other end of the cable in, nothing happens. It doesn't turn on. But if I take the malicious cable and I plug in the non-malicious side, nothing happens. But as soon as I take the malicious side and I plug it in, it boots up. And it actually tells me there is a power draw now on this cable. Well, if it is a cable and it's drawing power, what does that mean? There's technology inside that cable. There is something consuming power inside this little tiny cable. So this is a way that you can tell for sure if a cable is malicious or not, is one of those.
What's that called?
What is what called?
That little thing.
This little guy, Maker Fire, you can pass that back. There's a model number on there. There's another one like this, is just a little USB power meter. That one will do USB-C and power delivery. How many of you know of the Tamagotchis back in the 90s? So this is called a Ponagachi. It's using a Raspberry Pi. Any of you familiar with a Raspberry Pi? I'm sure this crowd is. This acts like a Tamagotchi, but it's a Ponagachi, and what it does is you have to feed it with Wi-Fi. So you go around and feed it with Wi-Fi access points, and what it will do is it'll de-auth clients, and then it will eat those packets, and then those packets you could technically run through like it's Netcat, and then you could actually pull out the password of people's Wi-Fi. What else? Yes?
Just word to the wise, if you're at work or any trusted place and you see, oh, someone's dropped their USB
Yes.
drive.
Yeah.
They didn't drop it.
No, they put it there.
Placed it there.
Yep.
And so something to,
Yeah.
because the instinct is, I'll plug that in and see, maybe I can figure out who it belongs to.
Yes, never do that. Yeah, and actually there is a, there was actually a talk given by a pen test group. I'm trying to find my other pack. Oh, well, it's not important. There was actually a talk by a pen test group, and what they did is they took 100 jump drives. So 50 of them were just plain old generic looking jump drives, and they sprinkled them around a FBI pen test, so an FBI building. They sprinkled them around, and I forget, it was like 20 or 30% plug-in rate. So pretty high, but not a lot, right? But all they did was they slapped a FBI logo onto those other 50 and spread those around. So it just had the FBI's logo on there, and it was a 92% success rate just by adding a little logo. Because an agent, what are they going to do? They're going to think somebody dropped this. This is an FBI one. We need to make sure there's nothing compromising on it. And they go and they plug it in. So yeah, never plug in a thumb drive, for sure.
And there's a network Chuck, have you ever seen that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and he tells you how to do that in 10 minutes.
Yes.
How to hack
Yeah.
those.
Yeah. I was trying to find, I have what's called a USB rubber ducky, and it's a keyboard injection tool. When you plug it in, it actually works like a keyboard is what it does, and it can type super, super fast. That cable can do the same thing. That's all it's doing on my phone. When I plug it into my phone, it's just acting like a keyboard to my phone. Android actually patched, it didn't allow keyboards to pull up the pin code there for a while. They patched it. So then we had to find another vulnerability to get it. And basically, I hate to say it, but the vulnerability was mash the keyboard is what made it get it to prop up. It was literally just spam the keyboard, and it brings up and pulls up the pin code for it to type it in. Now, there's a little bit of movie magic here. All it's doing is it's typing 1, 2, 3, 4, and I changed my pin code to 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's a little bit of movie magic there. It's not actually decrypting my password and actually typing in my password. What else? Anything else? Yes?
On occasion, I've gone to a website and I've noticed that there's a little tiny, I suppose it's an image, but it's like 1 pixel by 1 pixel. And somehow I think that's...
Yeah, so that's an analytics reporting pixel. So there's actually code that will, like in the web page you're talking about, inside the web page itself. So it's either you have a bad monitor and you have a dead pixel in your monitor. That could be too. But it's not normally a pixel anymore. It's normally a hidden text. but it'll be a analytics reporting back. So they're using that for some kind of like shopping. That's how, if you go and search something and then you all of a sudden the next day start seeing ads on Facebook or something like that, that's how they get you. And another thing, a lot of people think, oh, my cell phone's listening to me, or I was just talking about this yesterday and now all of a sudden I'm seeing ads for it. Well, believe it or not, when you scroll on those apps and you see something you like, what do? You pause for a fraction of a second more. And what's going to happen is it picks up on that fraction of a second. You paused on this just a little bit longer. That tells me that you're interested in this. So I'm going to give you more content like that.
Use DuckDuckGo rather than Google.
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't get everything.
Yeah.
It minimizes.
Yeah.
Cuts some of the.
But if you use Chrome. Yeah.
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 I can't figure this one out. What is the angle or the profit motive of getting all these phone calls to your cell phone? It says nothing and then just hangs up.
War dialing. It's to detect whether it's a person, an actual phone or not.
Okay, so my attitude now is any call I get where I am expecting a call that could be from an unknown number, so I kind of have to answer it. But I don't know what this number is. I simply answer the call, but I don't speak. And I wait for them
You still
to
answered the call.
first.
You still answered the call.
And if it's somebody I really intend to talk to, they will ask, is someone there? Hello? We'll connect.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I just let it time out and hang up.
Yeah.
So is there still a risk that I've answered it? Does that give somebody something?
It still triggers. There's a something picking up the phone. Whether it's a voicemail or a person, it's still something picking up the phone.
What? I mean, it's an active.
It tells them it's an active phone number that they could possibly phish.
I'm still not gonna talk about
Yeah, I mean, but it just tells them that. You can actually look up the Jolly Roger phone company, and what they do is they use a Raspberry Pi and they feed phone numbers into it. And what it does is it just keeps them on the phone. It'll use like a voice to text, and like they'll call about their car's extended warranty. And then this box will start talking to them, acting, and it's a computer doing it, but it acts like it wants the car insurance. And then it'll like, the person will do their long rant, and then it'll say, I'm so sorry, what did you say? I missed, it broke up there, just to keep them on the phone longer and longer. One thing you can do is you get on YouTube and look up, how many of you remember like when you had a landline and you called a phone and it would do the brrr, this number is no longer in service, they're now disconnected.
Yeah.
If you play that audio when you pick it up, sometimes that will trick the system into thinking that number is disconnected or is no longer in service, and then it will then remove you out of that phone list. Yeah, it's that tone, it's that.
Yeah, have not had it happen in probably a couple of years, but for a period of time, I would get phone calls from my own cell phone number.
Yeah, yeah. Yep, so with that, the downside to that is, so you could do that with a simple app. If you notice when she did that phishing attack, she actually said she was spoofing the number to appear like he was calling his cell phone provider. If a lot of phones back in the day, you would call them, and if you called your phone number, it would do what? Do you remember? It would load up your voicemail. And if you didn't have a PIN code on your voicemail, now I'm automatically into your voicemail because it looks like I'm calling myself. So it's going to go in straight into my voicemail. And if I don't have a PIN code on there, I'm instantly into the voicemail and I can listen to all new or saved voice messages. So that could be what they're trying to do, is they're trying to see if they can listen into your voice messages. But a lot of times it's to get around spam filtering. So they'll do that because you're not going to block your own number from spam.
For what it's worth, if I get a phone call from some number that I don't know, I never answer it. I figure if it is somebody, they'll leave a voicemail.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not wasting your time. We play a game in my classroom. We try to, if they get a spam call, they're allowed to interrupt me at any time. And we play how long can Mr. Cochran keep them on the phone. It's a lot of fun. 3 years ago, we're still at that highest number. We had somebody on for 11 minutes and 38 seconds. So not too bad. We wasted their time for 11 minutes and 38 seconds. All my students, of course, are all just like giggling out, and like I'll tell them I have a 2000 or a 1991 Ford that has 330,000 miles on it, and I have 6 DUIs, and I need car insurance, and we'll see how long we can keep them going.
There was a TED Talk about where they were doing text or email back.
Yeah.
And He finally made him give up.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.